Hello everybody, what's going on? My name is Rakia and I'm going to do a metaphysical breakdown of the movie The Matrix. So we're gonna go ahead and get started because it's a lot of jewels within the movie The Matrix. So I'm gonna kind of go over a little bit. This is from my point of view. This is from everything that I've studied, as far as symbols, anything with spirituality, the cult, anything like that. Those types of symbols, those type of messages are speaking to our subconscious when we watch movies. So when you don't know that there's another language for your subconscious, then you don't always understand or know what's being implanted within your mind. So I'm gonna let you know off the gate, grab you some pen and paper because it's a lot of little pieces in this movie, The Matrix. Most people who are, on the conscious path or on the path of truth, so to speak, or call themselves a seeker, are familiar with, the metaphysical properties of the Matrix. And it's a lot of them. And, honestly, within this movie, because it's a trilogy, this movie sets up for a lot more to be explained in the later parts, as far as in part 2 and completing itself in part 3. So I know that you can't do one Matrix movie breakdown and not do the other 2 Matrix movie breakdown because it completes the story. So we're going to start with Matrix 1. We're going to start with the first one, okay? This is like understanding the awakening process. What is it all about? So when we look at the movie The Matrix, right? This movie came out in '99. Now, I think what got us with this movie was way ahead of its time. And I say that because when we look at this movie and all of everything that they're talking about as far as computer simulation and stuff like that was a little bit ahead of its time. And I think that people more so were grasped by the special effects, like the action scenes. Nobody had ever seen in a movie, when the action scene, they get ready to kick and they go up in the air and they turn all the way around. We had never seen anything like that. So we got blew away by those special effects, and a whole lot about what the movie was actually about was missed. So the movie came out in '99, right? Now, when we look at it, when it first comes on and they're in a phone call, we see the Matrix screen and they give us a date, and that date, it says 2/1998. So me being me, if you add those numbers up in a numerological fashion, you get the number 39. Okay, 39 subsequently breaks down into the number 12. So we have the number 12. Now 12 is a very symbolic number for those who are familiar with the occult. Okay, 12, when you're in the Bible, there's 12 disciples. When you're dealing with astrology, there's 12 houses. 12 is, a symbolic number in reference to, especially when we're talking about the Jesus resurrection story. Now, for those who aren't familiar, that Jesus resurrection story has been told time and time again in every culture, within every mythology, because it's always referencing one major event that's been described all throughout of history, and it's basically a shift in your consciousness. It's basically an ascension to a higher being. So that number 12 is the very first thing that we see in that date. Numbers carry a certain vibration. So no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you're in, a number is a number. So when we're dealing with numerology, it's describing vibrational patterns, it's describing energy. So when we're talking about energy, we're talking about the number 12, then, automatically it's an alert. Okay, the number 12. So we're dealing with the Christ story, we're dealing with Christ consciousness. So that's kind of like the first kind of gimme that you first see when it first comes on. So when it comes on and we see Neo for the first time, on his computer screen, it says, "Wake up, Neo." Okay. Then it says, "The Matrix has you." And they tell him to follow the white rabbit. Now, it's a lot of references to other strong metaphysical movies. This is one of them. This is a Alice in Wonderland reference. Follow the white rabbit. When it comes to going down the rabbit hole, that's along the lines of things not being the way that they appear to be, the way that you think that they are. They're absolutely not like that at all. So, you know, it's saying follow the white rabbit. So Neo is getting an invitation to go down the rabbit hole. Are you curious? Do you want to know? Do you really want to know? See, people who want to know, with those curious minds, who ask the questions, they're seeking. So they're looking for something. Remember, Neo is looking for something. He don't really know what he's looking for, but he's looking for something. So the guy comes and buy the computer program for him. I mean, this is like 10 minutes into the movie. The guy comes and buy the computer program for him. And what did he say to Neo? He said, hallelujah, you're my own personal Jesus Christ. So really, the movie is telling us the whole time, metaphysically, what this movie really means. So he's like, hallelujah, man, you're my own personal Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Savior. Jesus Christ is the one who saved. So remember, we're dealing with the Christ energy, okay? And when I say the Christ energy, of course we know Christ along the lines of Jesus Christ, but Christ is a title. Christ means anointed one. There are multiple people throughout human history who has been at Christ consciousness, whether we're talking about Jesus Christ or Yahshua, as you like to call him, or whether we're talking about Krishna. You know, the stories are there. Whether we're talking about Heru or Horus, it's pretty much the same concept. It's about trying to get you to know the same concept. And so Neo goes on and he says, have you ever had a feeling that you're not sure if you're still sleeping, you're dreaming, or if you're awake? He said he's not sure. Have you ever had the feeling that you're not sure if you're sleeping, you're still dreaming, or if you're actually awake? Right? Because in reality, we're all dreaming. This is a lucid dream. This reality is a lucid dream. That's what the movie is saying, that this reality that we see, everything that we think is real, it's not really real. Now see, they had to give it to you the way that they did for the purposes of a movie. You got to understand that this is a very sacred art when it comes to movie making, music making. This is ancient. So when you're speaking to tell a story, you're trying to relay a message through a story. That's how we knew. Our ancestors always told stories to get us to understand concepts, because we understood that the human mind could be able to interpret that better versus just trying to concept the ideas of it. It's easier to grasp in a story. Take, for example, we do this with our children all the time. But we call these stories having morals, you know, like the tortoise and the hare. That's teaching a moral story. It's teaching a lesson through a story. So it's not to complicate it, but it's to keep it simple. It's really to keep it simple. So the guy says to Neo after this, it sounds like you need to unplug. He's saying, you need to unplug from the matrix. Remember, everybody's jacked into the matrix. So he's saying it sounds like you need to unplug. And so he noticed on the girl's shoulder that she had a tattoo of a white rabbit. So he was like, okay, so let me go. And so when he went, that's when he meets Trinity. Okay. Now Trinity, her name is Trinity. Okay, Trinity, we talking about the Holy Trinity. Father, Son, the Holy Spirit typically is what we think about with Holy Spirit. Some people, the Holy Trinity, some people look at man, woman, and child. Let's see, when you're dealing with the number 3, spirituality is very like intertwined with the number 3, because 3 has to deal with communication. Because see, 3, if you start at your crown and go down 3 chakras, and if you don't know what a chakra is, you have 7 chakras in your body. They're called energy centers. That's when we go into the number 7 and the importance of the number 7. If you look in the Bible, you see the number 7 a lot of times. When they get, especially in Revelation, they get to talking about the 7 churches, the 7 stars, and the 7, like that's, the number 7 is a very spiritual number. So 7, just like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, that has to do with the number 7 in the musical scale. Okay, because 7 represents your spiritual, your spiritual body, your 7 energy chakra system. And he goes and he meets, this is where he sees Trinity. And so Trinity starts to talk to him, and she says, it's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here. Now, this same exact quote is said in The Matrix 2, the second one, Reloaded. In the second one, it's said by the guy in the second one, who we'll have to go into that one, but this same concept is carried forward. That's why I say this is a trilogy. You gotta understand it from all 3. It's 3 parts. You can't look at 1 and understand 1 and never get 2 and 3. It's like you took the first step, but you didn't take the second and the third step. And that's how religion is set up. It's 3 steps to religion. Most people are okay. So when he meets Trinity, the question that drives us, Neo, is the question that brought you here. That's what she says to him. This is the same thing that is said when you get to the second matrix. As I stated earlier, this is the same thing. So this is going to carry forward. But when it comes to this, she said, the answer you're looking for, it will find you if you want it to. Here's what you got to know, right? Whatever you are looking for, it is looking for you in return. What you're seeking is also seeking you. Okay? So the next morning, of course, he oversleeps. See, he's living a double life. He's 2 different people, man. He's being Neo and he's being this other person, Thomas Anderson. So he gets to work and his boss says to him, this is what his boss says. He says, you have a problem with authority, Mr. Anderson. You believe that you are special, that the rules do not apply to you, but I assure you that you are mistaken. So listen, the authority in this society, in this world, is everything that you do that has a structure. So when you go to work, when you go to church, all of these things, government, church, schools, these institutions represent authority. Okay? They represent authority. So he says to him, you believe that you are special. Okay? Everybody who is seeking something that is not within the norm is going against society. So therefore, you have a problem with authority, because authority is telling you what you're supposed to do and what you should do, and you are questioning that authority. But he says to him, you are sadly mistaken. Because why? Because it's a matrix. Everybody is jacked in. You can't go against the programming when you're jacked in. Now, his name is Thomas Anderson. Where do we know the name Thomas in the Bible? Doubting Thomas, right? Thomas was the one who doubted that Jesus had rose again. He was a doubter. Who is Neo the whole time in this movie? He's trying to figure out who he is. So his name is Thomas. His name is Thomas because he's doubting himself the whole time. He's doubting himself the whole time. Now, if you look at the name Anderson, it literally means man. So it's generally speaking to every person. Because when you look at the 12 disciples, just like when you look at the 12 houses, you understand that all of those are aspects of yourself. So he's dealing with the part of himself that doubts himself. Just like every person has a doubting Thomas within them. Everybody has a part in them that doubts themselves. So that's what his name is literally saying. That's what it represents. It's about conformity. It's about adhering to the rules. Neo is not adhering to the rules. Remember, he's Neo. He's searching for something in a digital world. So he has a digital existence, a digital presence. So he's Thomas Anderson and he's also Neo. So this is saying at some point you either gonna have to conform or you're going to break out of the system one way or the other. The time has come for him to make a choice. Okay? And we're going to see this. It gets reiterated. See why? Okay? And now we get to the point where he meets Morpheus. He doesn't physically meet him, but he gets a phone call. He knows right off the gate it's Morpheus. Okay? So Morpheus says, I've been looking for you. But I don't know if you're ready to see what I have to show you. Okay? Morpheus, Morpheus is the more in you. Morpheus is the one trying to free you. Morpheus is the one trying to show you what is real. Okay? Because we got to go look at the Moorish science is the only place that teach you about true cosmic law. Okay, true cosmic law. Okay, cosmic law. So Morpheus is like the more to free us, and the one that is already free. See, the more is the sovereign because he governs himself. He understands the workings of the universe. That's why the more historically has always been the navigator. When Christopher Columbus sailed to America, Moors directed him, navigated him, because the Moors understood the universe and how to navigate. It is an ancient science that has been hidden today in what is known as occult science. But occult simply means hidden, because it is hidden from you. Because if you know the other side of what the religion is saying, if you understood the metaphysical properties, nothing could ever stop you, ever, because you would truly know the real truth. And the real truth goes back to your real true self. The true self, the true God within you, so to speak. You know, that's really what it's really trying to say. So Morpheus said to Neo, I can guide you, but you must do exactly as I say. Okay? He said you must do exactly as I say. Now remember, he's still Thomas. He doesn't know who he is. So he's listening, he's going, but he get to that ledge and he was like, look, I'm not about to do this on this ledge. I can't do this. He doubted himself. So what he do? He just let himself get caught because he didn't believe in himself. You know what I'm saying? He was afraid, which is who we all are. We're all afraid of who we really are because we've been taught and conditioned to contain and dim our own light. That's what we've been taught as human beings. Our light is dim now. We being made. See, that's what the movie is saying. The movie is saying, oh, they're making people into the use of a battery. But it's happening in real life. You see what I'm saying? You're not being who you really are here to be because you're allowing society to dictate who you are. That's really kind of the point of it. So after he get caught, right? After he get caught, the agent says to him, it seems like you've been living two lives. Thomas Anderson, who works at the computer programming company in Neo. So he says one has a future and one does not, because you cannot be two people. That goes back to truly understanding sovereignty, truly understanding Moorish science. It's not really about this physical, man. It's about spiritual. This movie is about spiritual warfare. This movie is about your spirituality. It's about the war that's really going on outside this matrix. See, everything we seen, they put on the news that they want us to react to, that's the Matrix. That's the matrix. But what's really happening, the real fight, is spiritual. It's really taking place inside yourself. To really, really be 100% real with you, it's taking place within yourself. You have to find your true savior within yourself to save you out of your own situation. That's really what it is. But see, we've been conditioned because we didn't learn the religion correctly. We've been conditioned to think that another person is actually going to do it for us. So we become lazy, we just complain, and we don't do what we really need to go out here and do because we don't feel like we got the power. Because we done gave all the power away, remember? Because we believe somebody else's responsibility to save us, remember? So all our power is minute now. It's like you're not even using it. You're just like, well, I'm just going to give it all away. I'm just going to give it to God. And you do give it to God. But it's not about it actually being physical. You know what I mean? It's not physical. So we have these physical ideas in our mind. We have this physical idea of God in our mind. But how can that be? You see, it's because we conditioned to think about it that way. See, our minds are so closed off and so small that we can't even encompass how big and how great and what God really is. You see what I mean? We can't really, because that's not how we're taught to think. So this whole thing is about you got to reprogram your mind. They keep reiterating programming. You got to reprogram your mind. So he goes on, finally, and they get him. He finally meets Morpheus and everything. He said, I can imagine you're feeling a bit like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole. Because it's like realizing that I don't really know what's going on. Because at this point in time, he's seen weird stuff happen. So it's like, man, what's real, what's not? So at this point, he's like Alice going down. I don't know what's happening. So he says you're here because you feel something. You felt it all your life, like something is wrong in the world, but you can't really explain it. You don't really know what it is. You can't put your finger on it. It's like, he said, it's like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. So if you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure you can relate to knowing, man, something is not right. Something really doesn't make sense. I know they're saying that it's supposed to be like this, but I just can't really wrap myself around accepting that this is really right. So that's what Neo was feeling. You see what I'm saying? That's what a lot of people are feeling when they feel like something is not right in this world. Because remember, this story is really trying to tell us about what's really going on. But it's trying to tell us in the forms of a movie, in a story, in a trilogy. So, he says to him, do you want to know what it is? The Matrix. So he goes on and he says to him, the matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. You can see it when you look out the window. You can see it when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. So the matrix is everywhere. It's in everything. It's in everything that you do. What is he saying? You know what I mean? So it's like, he says, well, what is the truth? Now, this is the key. This is the biggest key. Is that he said that you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born in bondage, in a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. It is a prison for your mind. So technically, we are all in a prison in our own minds. Because everything is out to grab your mind, yo. Everything is out to get your mind. Because if you control the mind, you don't have to physically control someone if you control the way that they think. You understand? There's always a mental enslavement process to slavery. There's more than just physical slavery. You have to be mentally enslaved so that you can, from your crown, tell your will not to strive, not to survive. When your mind is under the control, how are you going to fight for what's best for yourself? But he goes on to tell him that you can't be told what the matrix is. Like, you have to see it for yourself. And this is true. For people who feel like they're more enlightened, or people who feel like they're more metaphysical, when you try and talk to people who are not familiar with that train of thought, you can't tell them what it is. It's something that someone has to come into realization for themselves. That's why the ancestors always said that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Because when a person is ready, when they are ready, they are going to meet everybody or be in the position that they need to be in to get those answers, because everything that you are seeking is seeking you in return. But see, we don't know the universal laws anymore. Like, we don't understand the cosmic law. We don't understand the universal principles that we are governed by in this reality, that you can't avoid in this reality. That's the point of being in this place. That's why this place is considered hell, because it's a flawed existence. It's an existence that exists because of duality. You cannot have good without bad. You cannot have light without darkness. There cannot be man without woman, and vice versa. So this is a world of duality. So he gave him a choice. So it goes back to choice. It always goes back to choice, man. So he got a red pill or a blue pill. So, you know, he takes the red pill, you know, because he want to know the truth. He like, man, I want to know the truth. So, you know, he goes through all of this. You know, he wake up and he see everybody. He sees all the people. He sees this, you know. So now he knows what the matrix is. Now he has seen with his own eyes, you know. So he's awake now. So now it's like, there's no going back. When you wake up, you can't ever go back to sleep. Cause now it's like imagine sleeping in hell. Imagine like you gonna go to sleep in hell. You can't. You aware now. You know where you at. It's like, how am I gonna sleep in this? I can't sleep in this. I can't be at ease in this. So that's what it is. And so, you know, we see them rehabilitating his body with the acupuncture and everything, because he's never used his real muscles. And so the real interesting thing, he was like, why does my eyes hurt? And so Morpheus said to him, it's because you never used them before. So when we go through our spiritual awakening, because this is symbolizing a spiritual awakening. So now that he's awakening, just like when we go through our own spiritual awakening, when your third eye is opening, your kundalini is rising, you can actually experience physical pain. You can actually experience, you know, actual, you know, migraines. You can experience a lot of different things with that awakening, with that kundalini rising. And that kundalini is your suppressed creative goddess energy that's just stuck at the base root of your spine. It's at the bottom of your chakra centers. That's what your 7 chakra centers are for. That's your Jacob's ladder. That's how you get to heaven, is by raising up your kundalini. Your kundalini has to rise up. And in its rising up, it wakes up it opens up your third eye. It opens your pineal. So now you can see beyond the physical now. Okay, so his third eye is waking up. That's why he says it hurts. So when we going through our spiritual awakening, you're going to experience mad pain. And it's not just physical pain. You're going to go through emotional pain, because walking this path is the hardest path to walk ever, because you must walk it alone. You have to walk it by yourself. Because one of the things you're going to experience, you get into certain things, you want to tell everybody you know, because you love everybody. But it's not for everybody. Everybody's not going to get it. Everybody's not meant to walk that path. So that's what this is saying. So, you know, he goes on, after Neo wakes up, he kind of introduces him to everything. He tells him, you know, he's on a ship. They're on a ship. What's the ship called? Nebuchadnezzar. Ooh, who's Nebuchadnezzar? Where do we see Nebuchadnezzar at? In the Bible. What does Nebuchadnezzar represents? You see what I'm saying? So, and we go on to learn that Morpheus believes that he's carrying out a prophecy of finding the one who is going to free them all of the Matrix. The Matrix represents the structure. It represents, you know, it's like Babylon. The Matrix is Babylon. So he's supposed to bring down the destruction of Babylon. He's supposed to destroy the Matrix. This is all going hand in hand. Okay, so this is when, so now he's going to explain to Neo about what the Matrix is, like actually really explain it to him by uploading them through a program. So, he goes and he asks, they're in this construct program, and he says, this isn't real. And he said, well, Neo says to him, what is real? This is what we have to ask ourselves. What is real? How do you define real? How do we define real? Because if real is what you feel, taste, or see, then real is simply the electrical signals that's interpreted by your brain. Because you got to remember, what you see is based on what your brain tells you that you see. What you feel, how something tastes, is based on how your brain tells you that it tastes and that it feels. You understand? Your brain. So remember, in the Matrix, we're all jacked in. It's about your nervous system. So, what's real? So, if we think everything that's real is what we see, like, think about this in our own actual reality. If that's the case, only thing that's real is just what your brain is telling you. So is it really real, or is our brain just creating a simulation for us while we're in this reality? Because we think it's real, but have you ever been dreaming and you didn't know that you was dreaming until you woke up? So think about that now. Everybody has had a dream, you in this dream, but you don't know that you're dreaming until you wake up. That shit is real life. That's real life. You don't know that all this out here isn't real until you wake up. But it's not about physically waking up. You have to spiritually wake up, because you are spiritually in bondage. Now, the way that it's explained in the movie, of course, they say that everything is associated through AI. So these machines are getting their energy off of human beings. So humans are keeping this structure, keeping the machines going, keeping this matrix going. Because the human body basically generates the same amount of electricity as a 120 volt battery, and it gives out a certain amount of BTU. So what they're saying is, because remember in the movie, the humans destroyed the sun. We scorched the skies because the sun was their source of energy. It was light. So what they figured out was we could just use humans. That was the whole point of what was happening in the Matrix. They were using people as their energy source. See, people are the energy source of this Matrix because we keep this shit going. Everybody's playing a role to keep this shit going. So we're all participating in this simulation. We're all keeping this structure going unknowingly and unwillingly because we're all plugged in. When you plugged in, you have no choice but to be the system. That's what they're saying. You have no choice. It's just a part of who you are. See, the Matrix is control. He said it's control. It is built to keep us under control, to keep a human being able to be a source of energy. So that's what we are all doing. We are all participating in this reality, giving things our energy. When in reality, you're your own son. You're your own son. See, if in understanding the chakra system, your solar plexus is your son. That's your inner son. That's where your confidence comes from. That's why we have to go back to understanding and knowing our energy body. Understanding what the ancestors already knew. See, you got to understand that everything we live by today was set by the ancients. Why don't we know what they know? Like, that's just how I see it. Why don't we know what we know? And so, at this point, when Neo really realizes this truth, he doesn't want to believe it. And so, he said, I didn't say it would be easy, but I said I would give you the truth. See, the truth is not easy to accept. It's not. Understand, the truth is not an easy pill to swallow. Cypher really showed us this because he wished he would have took the other pill. He betrayed everybody so he could go back to the illusion. And so we're going to see what role he played, because I'm going to get into that too. Because Cypher, if you look at his name, Cypher, like, Lucifer, he's playing a role, but we're gonna get into that too, but so afterwards Neo says, man, I can't go back, can I? Nah, you can't go back, man. It's never any going back. Everybody that knows, once you know this real truth, there's never any going back. Like, you can't go back. You can't unsee something you've seen. You can't do that. So Morpheus says to him, this is what we have to know. Us on the path, us that are into, getting into this knowledge. Morpheus apologized to Neo. He said to him, I have to apologize because we have a rule. And he says, we never free a mind once it's reached a certain age. Because that mind has a hard time letting go. Because eventually, things become a part of a process. It becomes hardwired. And it's no removing it. Now, when you're looking into the ancient systems, the ancient mystery schools and everything, they had in a certain way of looking at age. The age of 30 was the age of maturity. When you reach 30, because at that point, I feel like it's because astrologically that's when Saturn had returned and had provided the lessons that needed to be provided through time in Saturn, which is the lesson giver. But once you reach a certain age, you can't change. It's like it's the same thing as you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So when people get to a certain place in their life, they can't really change anything. They can't really, because their mind will literally like collapse. So there are people who cannot accept, a lot of new age thinking or stuff like that, and that's okay. We gotta know that it's okay that they can't, like it's all a part of how it is. And so this is where Neo tells him about the prophecy. He says there was a man that was born inside the matrix and he could change the matrix however, whenever he wanted to. And he was the one who freed the first of them. And the oracle prophesies that he would return and he would destroy the matrix. Or he would at least set the people free. So Morpheus says the human race will never be free as long as the matrix exists. Key words: human race. Human. The true man. Not mankind. The true man. The sovereign. The real you is your soul. It's really talking about your soul. It's really talking about the true essence of you, the infinite part of you that is the source that we call God, or that you want to say is the creator, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. That's really what he's talking about. That part of you can't be free in no matrix. You can't be who you truly are plugged into no matrix, because the matrix isn't programmed for you to be who you are. The matrix is programmed for you to be a robot. The matrix is programmed for you to conform. Some things it's okay to conform for. We have to conform for some things because conformity brings structure. But we have to ask ourselves, are these things we conforming to for our benefit at this point in time, in this reality, in this existence, in this current society? That's really what it's saying. See, Morpheus believes that Neo is the one. That's what this is all about. Neo being the one. If you look at the one, like write out the one, or if you write out one or write out Neo, you can rearrange the words Neo to one. Okay? Everybody is the one though. See, Neo is like neophyte. Where y'all know neophyte from? There's just like all my people, fraternities and sororities and masons and people who know societies. What's a neophyte? That's somebody who's new. That's like a somebody who's a prospect. They'll recruit. You looking at him like you might got what it takes, and if you can make it through, then you can elevate. You know, you can graduate. So he's Neo. He's a Neo. He's a baby. He's new. Even though he's a man, look, he's about 30 or so. But he's a Neo. He's a baby spiritually because he has no idea who he is. So he's a neophyte. It's just like when people, y'all in fraternities and y'all in sororities. What happened when you a Neo? You don't know anything. You got to go through this whole process, this whole structure. And then what happened? You are reborn into somebody else. You become somebody else. You receive a name. You receive a second name. It's like an alter ego because you have been initiated. You went through a system of initiation for your mind. It's for your mind. Why do you think they call it crossing the burning sand? So we got to think about this. Why do Masons do what they do? See, I don't know if now you have some Masons who do the procedure when it comes to with the coffin, where it's like you have to, and we see this in some movies. You know, it's like it's symbolic to being born again. Just like, remember, Jesus was born again at the age of 33. Y'all listen to me. Jesus was born again at the age of 33. Okay? Remember? He was baptized. It's symbolic. He was born again. Why 33 though? Because see, we got to remember, the story of Jesus is not a physical story. If you have an issue with that, then this probably ain't the place for you. Even though, we this far into the video, but we got to understand, first and foremost, the Jesus story is not a physical story. It was not about a physical man. Like, he wasn't a real man. It's about the whole concept of awakening up your true soul, resurrecting your true self, opening up to who you really truly are so that you can understand that I am that I am. I am the Father in the flesh. I am. So you have to come into terms of understanding that. See, that's what Neo is coming to learn. He is learning this right now. This is what we all have to learn ultimately in this path as humans. You might not get it now, or you might not get it this lifetime, but everybody has to walk the path. But it's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. Now, Morpheus said that to Neo on that ledge. It's the difference between knowing the path and walking the path. It's a major, major difference. Everything that we go through, we going through it for a reason. So we got to know Jesus was baptized at the age of 30. Well, Jesus was crucified at the age of 33. We got to know when you're looking at your spine, from the base of your spine all the way up to the base of your skull, there are 33 bones in your spine. There are 7 energy chakra centers aligned along your spine. It is your Jacob's ladder. It is your way to heaven. It is how you get to the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is symbolic to your crown. Your crown. You understand? Y'all remember Jay-Z made that song on Magna Carta Holy Grail called Crown? Said, have you ever seen heaven? Have you ever been to, he has a song called Crown, song called Heaven. Have you ever been to heaven? It's about understanding that heaven is here. Here's your crown. Your kingdom is here. Your kingdom is here in your thoughts. You talk to God every day in your thoughts. You with God every day. So what are you saying up here in your mind? Are you saying bad stuff all the time and wondering why your life is bad? You got to think about that, yo. These are your conversations with God up here. So your reality is going to exist based on that. So that's just kind of how it is. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of how it goes. So, he didn't want to believe it. But Morpheus believes that Neo is the one. So he tells him, like, you got to rest. Why I need to rest? Rest for your journey. You got a journey ahead of you. You got a lot you got to learn. When you get on this path, it's a journey. The path to self. That's really the only path it is. It's the path to self. It is a journey. So after this, so the first thing that happens now, so it's like, okay, rest for your journey. So now he knows I'm about to go on a journey. It's symbolic, it's subconscious, it's spiritual, but it's a journey. Everybody you meet, everywhere you go, it's a part of your journey, making you who you are. So the first thing that happens now after this is he meets Tank, right? So he meets a natural born human. A natural born human. So this is somebody who operating his true self. He ain't never been into the Matrix before. This is somebody that only knows the real world. He only knows what's real. He doesn't know anything about the Matrix. So, he learns about Zion. What's the meaning of Zion? Zion has always been symbolic as to being the opposite of Babylon. Zion is the place that, the goal, the chosen place. That's, where everybody's aspiring to go. As far as with Zion, it's symbolic to heaven, so to speak. So, the real humans, the people who unplug, they want to be free from the machines. Because, he's learned people, they're living underground. You can't really live out in peace because, the machines are destroying everything. So it's like if the one can destroy the Matrix, which has the control over the people and which is what's feeding the machines, then the humans can be free. Because then the humans won't be attacking them and won't be killing them. They can live and they can be safe without being at war all the time with these machines. So Neo and Morpheus go on. They had that fight scene. Now the fight scene, Morpheus is always teaching Neo, man. Morpheus is like the master teacher. He's like the one he like the Yoda. That's who Morpheus is in the movie. He's the teacher. So, he lets him know some rules can be bent, some rules can be broken. So, he goes on to say, don't think you are, know you are. It's about knowing you are. And so Neo says to him, I know what you're trying to do. He said, I'm trying to free your mind, Neo. Like, free your mind. Because the only thing that can ever hold you back in this life is you. Only you. Because your fear only exists in your mind. It is not really real. So if it's not really real, who is stopping you? The only thing that's ever really stopping you is you. So he's trying to free his mind. So he's saying you got to free your mind. You have to let it all go. That's spirituality, letting it go. That's surrender. That's true surrendering. That's letting go the fear, the doubt, the disbelief, everything. You have to let it go. Being spiritual is about letting go. It's about letting go of all that. So you're not confined to that. You remember Bag Lady? You gonna miss your bus dragging all them bags like that? All this baggage you keep pulling along, all this fear, this shit is slowing you up. You can't get anywhere like that. You have to let it go so you can go be free. You gotta let that go. So he does the jump, he falls. He sees the blood and everything, so he lets him know, your mind, the mind makes everything real. So even though this shit ain't real, your mind making it real, your brain making it real. So you still having to participate because this is an experience. You are a human having an experience. It's like understanding that God is in each and every last one of us. We're just having an individual experience. So it's like I'm God having an experience as Rakia. It's just one aspect of it. But you have to know that we're all a part of this same collective. That's the issue with what's really going on with this racism in America. Everybody is just really, it's separation. It's ego. It's really egotistical because if we all understood, we all come from the same source, really, at the end of the day, really, how can we really be separate? How can we really deal with it? But this world is flawed. This world is built on duality. So we got to understand that that's what makes this experience what it is. The Matrix, he says the Matrix is a system, so they go on, he take them into a program. The Matrix is a system, and that system is our enemy. You look around and you see businessmen, doctors, lawyers, teachers. These are the minds of the people we are trying to save. But these people are still a part of that system, and that system is our enemy. And many of these people are so dependent on that system that they will defend it. And that's when the whole lady with the red dress. So what does this mean? This means Here's what you have to understand. People who are not unplugged, people who are still jacked in, by default, they defend the system. They don't mean to. They are not trying to harm us. That's what it's trying to explain to us. The people, the way they explained it to us was they turned into agents. It basically was like an agent takes over to apprehend them every time. They become the agent. That's just how it works, because when you plugged in, you can't really defute the programming because you're tied into the programming. It's just what it is. It's the reason why people naturally will refute those who are opposing the oppression. It's the programming. It's built in. They can't avoid it. They can't help it. So we have to know that, yeah, we're trying to save the people, but at the same time, they're still right now a part of the system. As long as that system exists, they're a part of that system. So you always got to keep that in mind. So when he told him to look again, it was an agent. So you got to know, if you ain't one of us, you one of them by default. So if you're not aware, if you're not self-aware, by default, you're a part of the system. You get what I'm saying? So that's just kind of how it is. Like he called them sentinel programs. You got to remember, like when your people watch TV, it's called TV programming. They listen to the radio, it's called radio programming. People go to school, it's training, it's conditioning. We're all being conditioned for this system. So naturally, when someone goes against the system, you're going to be seen as an enemy. You have to be, because you're going against it. It doesn't have shit to do with right or wrong at the end of the day. You see, because the system is always going to try and make it look like the people going against the system are wrong. Of course it is, because it's the natural resistance. But it's not really about right and wrong. That's how they got people jacked up in the religion aspect, because we think in the religion aspect has to do with our morality and our right and wrong. That's how they got us. That's why it's a tool of control. That's why it's a manipulation. That's why you got to understand spirituality really don't have nothing to do with religion. Spirituality is just your self-awareness. It's just being self-aware of your own energy and who you are and being responsible for that energy. But being religious or religion is about mythologies. It's about cultural origins, speculations, so to speak. They're really not one and the same. They really have nothing to do with each other. Religion has to do with a moral aspect, so to speak, to try and keep you in a conditioned state. When we all know, thou shalt not kill. Of course, I don't want to just go out here and just kill nobody. Of course not. But what if somebody trying to hurt me? What if somebody trying to kill me? Do I have the right to defend myself? Should I not kill if somebody trying to kill me and that's the only choice that I have? Is there not a gray line, a gray space somewhere? It's not that black and white. It's plenty of grays up in there. That's why we have court systems. That's why people have to go and be judged. You know, but the way that the system is, the system has certain biases so that way that they can keep certain people in the system opposing each other. Because as long as you're opposing each other within the system, you're not going to oppose the system itself. Because if all of us on one side and we know we all together, and we're going to look at this system and like, look, man, this system isn't for all of us. So it has to keep us divided so we can keep at each other. That's kind of the point. So, you know, Neo, now, and later after we see the scene where he talks to Cypher. Now, every person represents something. Every person really represents like an aspect of yourself, really. But Cypher, as we know to be, was the traitor, right? He was pretty much, if we was looking at the disciples, he would be the Judas. Because he was the one who betrayed them. Just like Judas betrayed Jesus for some silver, this nigga betrayed Morpheus for eating steak and doing basic everyday shit in the Matrix. Because he said what? Ignorance is bliss. Lucifer. Now, Lucifer has always got a bad rep in religion. Now, but let's look at Lucifer and what Lucifer really means, because we got to remember this is just a role. We got to remember these are roles, okay? It's easier to see in a movie because when we look at a movie, We know people are playing roles. You know, we know that there's a producer, there's a director. We know that these people are acting out of a character. But we don't apply the same concept to real life because we think this is real. We don't really know that it's a matrix. We don't really know that. So we don't really get that this shit is all really still a dream. It's a dream in a dream, really. It's just like Inception. It's a dream in a dream. But at the end of the day, Cypher or Lucifer means light bearer. That's all Lucifer means. Lucifer is the one that brings the light. Lucifer, also, we call it the morning star, which is, in astrology, Venus. And if we know Venus, Venus rules over Taurus and Venus rules over Libra. Okay? Venus rules over the arts. It rules over beauty. It has to do with attraction, money. It's green. Now, green is the same tint in this movie. Like, it's so much green just in the visual itself. Now, a lot of people say the Matrix and everything is about money and about the currency. And yeah, that is true too. But we talking about green. See, Lucifer give you all the codes in the movie. Or Cypher. Remember when Neo took the pill? He said to Neo, when he said, when he was explaining to him what it was, when Morpheus said it, and he said, what does that mean? Cypher said it means, what did he say? He said it means, say bye-bye to Kansas, Dorothy. He said, say bye-bye, Kansas. Bye-bye, Dorothy. You're not in Kansas anymore. You're not in Kansas anymore. Dorothy, he's referencing the Wizard of Oz. Now, why is there a reference to the Wizard of Oz? Because everybody knows the Wizard of Oz is the ultimate Matrix movie. It was the first movie that explained the whole thing about your true person and everything about the money and the currency and everything about this being a Matrix. It was in the Wizard of Oz. That whole movie was all about it. Maybe we should do one on the Wizard of Oz, but the Wizard of Oz was like on it. It was very, very, very blatant. Because if you notice in the Wizard of Oz, she had to follow the yellow brick road to get to the Wizard of Oz, which was Oz was green. Okay, your chakras go from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. Okay, so she had to follow the yellow brick road to get to Oz, which is green. So she was traveling across her lower self to get to her higher self in your heart, which is your heart. Okay. Look at it like this. You got 7 chakras. That one in the middle is your heart. Your heart chakra is in the middle. It's like the bridge. It's like the mediator. Now, you know spiritually who represents the heart? Jesus. Jesus represents the heart. That's why Jesus taught compassion. That's why everything about Jesus was compassion, empathy. That's why we have the fish symbol for representing Jesus, for the Piscean age, the Pisces energy, the compassion, the martyr, the victim or the healer energy. That is what Jesus represents, the heart chakra, the green chakra. You got to live from your heart. That's why green money, green abundance, as long as you're doing from your heart, you're going to get everything that you need accordingly. That's what Jesus taught. You do everything you need to do. You're doing it from your heart. You're doing what's right. Your needs and everything is going to be taken care of. That's the heart chakra. That's why whenever you can do this right now, you can just Google Jesus in images, right? In the most common, most used images of Jesus, you will always see that he has a heart that is glowing. It's a glowing heart. These symbols are evident. And so his heart is glowing and he has a halo or a sun around his head. You see what I'm saying? So Jesus represents that heart chakra. So Cypher is like Judas because he's going to betray them. Because we see him meet with the agent. We see him saying, yo, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to be in this real world. This real world is too hard. I just want to go back to where everything was fake, where I didn't know nothing. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to go backwards. Because why? Lucifer represents the beauty. It's Venus, remember? It's the illusion, yo. You got to think about how all of this correlates. Astrology, the Bible, it's all the same. It is all the same. And when you really know all of it, man, it is the most beautiful story that you ever seen in your life. But you must like know how to apply that to yourself, because it was never about expecting somebody else to save you, man. It was never about somebody else coming. It was about, no, you're the one that's coming. You're the Christ that's coming. Christ is coming. Remember, Christ is a title. So Christ is coming. That anointed one is coming. There is an anointed one inside of you that's trying to come out. But you gotta let it come out. So, so after this, so Lucifer is the light bearer. Remember this, and I'm gonna pull this full circle for y'all, so stay with me. So Lucifer brings light. So we got to remember that in order to bring light to something, there must be darkness. Let me go back. You cannot bring light to light. Understand? You have to bring light to darkness. So Lucifer's role is to bring light. Okay? Now, whether you feel like it's good or bad, what he doing, or how, or that whole thing, that's minute. Don't worry about that. That's the trick. That's the hold up. That's the duality thinking. Nope. He's playing a role. He's a part of the big picture. That's what it means to say, look at the big picture. Just like in the movies, see the picture. This is a picture presentation. You're looking at the big whole picture. Without Lucifer betraying Morpheus, Neo never comes to term with being the one. You see what I'm saying? If Lucifer never betrays them, he never becomes the one. If Judas never betrays Jesus, he never gets to be crucified. Think about this now. Everything serves a purpose. It's about the big picture. You follow? So they're in the car. So now Neo is returning to the actual Matrix for the first time. He's going to see the Oracle. Okay? Now he's going to see the Oracle. So now he's in, for the first time he's returning back, and it's weird. He's like, wow, I used to eat there. So he asked Trinity. He said, all of my memories, they never really happened. So what does that mean? And she says to him, that means the Matrix can't tell you who you are. You see what I'm saying? The Matrix can't tell you who you are. So now, not Morpheus, but Neo, he's going to see the Oracle now, so it's his first time back into the Matrix. So he's going to see the Oracle. And upon seeing the Oracle, this is where things are really getting ready to get, in it. So before they go in, Morpheus tells him, try not to look at it as right or wrong. Okay, she's merely a guide. And people who are familiar with, readings and stuff like that, you really can't view it as right or wrong. It's really not like that. But that takes a certain perspective to be able to to go through things or act in that manner of understanding that concept. But so when he goes in, it's a lot of children in there, and I feel like mostly in our society, our children are the ones who are gifted, and we kind of shun their gifts because we don't really understand it. But these are what's called the indigo children. And I think that these are the children that he sees, the indigo children. These are our children who are still very connected. They're here to really heal the world. They're here. They're more compassionate. They have more empathy. They're naturally sensitive, and they're just a different type of people that's here to heal the earth. And we see this in a lot of people, and they feel out of place, and a lot of times they get mislabeled with certain things, but in reality, they're just gifted children. They're spiritually gifted children. So this is where we see the boy bending the spoons. So he says to Neo, do not try and bend the spoon. That is impossible. Then he says, only see the truth. And that is that he says, only see the truth that there is no spoon. And then you'll know that it's not the spoon that bends, but it is yourself that bends. So, what is he saying? What is this meaning? Of course, you can't bend the spoon with your mind, right? But it's a matrix, right? So, if it's a matrix, then it's not really real. So if it is you that bends, see, this is like along the lines of illusions, understanding illusions. So in saying that it is you that bends, really it's about changing your perspective. Things don't change. Our perspective about them change. You see what I mean? Like, it doesn't change. We just change how we respond to it because we begin to look at it differently. Our perspective must change. Our vision must change. We must change. That is what bends. Our perspective changes. That bends. That's the point of having an open mind. An open mind is being able to see things from different perspectives. I may look at, that's no different than if I'm looking straightforward at somebody, or if I'm viewing something from a side view or from an aerial view. It's about changing your perspective. Okay, so now this oracle scene, when he goes in with the oracle, major alert. Everything about this scene gives you the meat and the potatoes of everything. It's like, so she says to him, don't worry about the vase. What vase? He breaks a vase at that vase. He says, but what she says to him, what's really going to bake your noodle later is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't have said anything? Would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything? So the question rises, because remember, she's a guide, she's an oracle. So she can see in people and in the matrix itself what no one else can see. But as we learned in the second one, she is yet still a part of the program of the matrix. You see, so she's still a structured part of the matrix, even though she's helping those who are resisting the matrix. This is all a part of a whole bigger plan. This is a part of the whole spiritual concept of just knowing that everything is going exactly as it's supposed to be. Sure, things are looking messed up, but sometimes things have to happen that way for things to play out the way that they should. So, and she asks him, does he think he the one? And he says he doesn't know. He really doesn't think he's the one. That's why he's Thomas. That's why his name is Thomas. He's doubting himself. His name is Thomas Anderson. Man doubts who they are. So he's doubting who he is. And she tells him about the know thyself. So basically, she really just telling him, you don't really know who you are. You don't really know. But she tells him, she goes on and he feels bad because you got to remember the Jesus energy, that martyr, that victim energy, or that savior energy, that empathic, compassionate energy. That's the Christ energy. So she says to him, because she knows people. You got to remember, man, when you know people, you know what they respond to. You know how to get them to move. She knows how to get them. That's why she's an oracle. She says what you need to hear so that you can be able to bring light to your own situations. Okay, so she says to him, poor Morpheus, because she knows how much, Morpheus believes in this. And he believes in this because she provided him the belief, because she told him the prophecy. So it's like, she's like, yeah, without Morpheus, man, we're all lost. But he believes in what he believes in so much that he's going to sacrifice himself for you. And you are going to have to make a choice. And choose between your life and his. So remember, Neo has 2 lives, though. He living 2 lives. He's Thomas and he Neo. One of these lives can't go on. Remember, the agent said this. One of these are going to make it and one of them is not. Now, see, the agent is pushing for Thomas to make it. Of course, he wants you to keep on doubting yourself, keep on being who you are, what you are. Stay this, because if you really want to be this thing over here, you know, that's going to cause problems within this whole structure. So we don't need you to be this. You got to stay being this over here. You have to stay subservient. You need to keep that light very dim. Dim your light and stay over here and stay in your place. So, she has to say these things to him to get him to move. That's what the Pisces energy moves for. So, she has to tell him this, to plant this thought in his mind for what's about to occur. Because Morpheus is about to be betrayed. Because really, if you look at a movie, right, everybody who's in the movie is considered an ensemble. That means that the whole cast is one body. Okay? So think about it like that. So if the whole cast is one body, one person, everybody in the movie makes up a different aspects of one person, one personality. It's just like understanding that you have many different organ systems in your body, but you're one organism. You know, you have your circulatory system, you have your excretory system, you know, your lymphatic system, your nervous system. But all of these systems make up this one organism. So everybody's playing a role. Okay, so remember, everybody playing a role. So, but yeah, we know it's a setup, right? Because Cypher setting them up. You know what I'm saying? Of course. So Morpheus being for the people because he's the more. You got to understand, the more always sacrifice. The more sacrifice in history, because the more was the ones who carried the ancient knowledge, and they taught those who they had to teach because they knew they were going to be betrayed. So there's a lot of people who wonder how the information ended up in other people's hands. Well, the information had to be handed down so that the information could survive. If the information never fell into the wrong hands, it would have been in nobody's hands, and we wouldn't have the knowledge, period. So the Moors understood that, so they sacrificed for the people. They sacrificed for their people. So that's the thing about the Moor. So he's the Moor. He's the ancient teacher. He's the navigator. Okay? Because the Moor taught the Western world. That's why Morpheus is teaching Neo. You understand? He's teaching Neo. But, you know, so Lucifer, with his betrayal, is bringing light to help prove. Lucifer is helping to prove that Neo is the one himself, inadvertently knowing his role is helping to prove who and what Neo is. So you got to understand that you need the devil in your life, because the devil is the part of you that's going to show you the dark part of you that you got to bring light to. Because you can't be what you really put here to be if you are afraid of your own darkness. Because your greatness is in that darkness. You just got to bring that light to it. You just got to bring that light to it. So, you know, we go on, we see the Smith with Morpheus, and he's trying to crack his mind. He's trying to crack his mind. So he says to Morpheus, have you ever marveled at the beauty, the genius, the billions of people living in this oblivion? He's talking about the Matrix. So we see that Agent Smith, he's just as resistant to this structure as anybody else. Why? He doesn't like this either. He wants it to go. He doesn't like this place either. He's like, I don't like it here. I don't like you humans. I don't like this place. I want to go. You see? He doesn't like it either. He just doesn't like it from the opposite angle. You understand? They both they are one and the same. And we see this as the movie plays out, as the trilogy plays out, as we see Neo progress. We see Agent Smith progress too. Why? Because they are one and the same damn person. They are one and the same. Now see, the thing about Trinity represents the intuition. She represents the feminine principle. Because the whole entire time, she knew Neo was the one. She knew it off her own inner self because she loved him. See, that's darkness. Well, you might be saying, well, how is it her loving him darkness? Because it was hidden. Darkness is just shit that's hidden. We can't keep being afraid of the dark. It was hidden. She hid her emotions. She hid her feelings. When you hide your feelings, that is darkness. Be upfront with your feelings. Stop hiding from what you feel. That shit creates demons. That's what makes demons in your life. No, be real with what you feel. Accept it. Accept it. Because if you don't accept it, you're going to create illusions because you don't want to accept what's in the dark. That's what we supposed to be understanding about darkness, about the devil. That's what we supposed to be understanding about all this stuff, man. It's really trying to tell you how you supposed to be like Christ. Christians want to be Christ-like. This is how you be like Christ. It has nothing to do with the way we looking at this stuff as basic, right or wrong. You know, it's not that way, man, because nothing works that way. It's too many grays in between. It's gray area all the way through. We can't look at anything that black and white. So that's kind of how it is. You know what I'm saying? So Trinity always knew. Trinity is the part of us that always knows. But we don't want to accept it. We don't want to trust what we feel. We don't trust our intuition. That's why we don't know how to meditate. We don't know how to listen to God. That's why we don't know. That's why we got so much anxiety. That's why because we don't know how to chill, relax, and let the answer come. Because it's going to come to you. Because see, she already knew. She knew off her feelings. We know already based off what we feel, but we so shut off that we get in the dark about it. So Cypher had to betray them and had to put them in a situation that all of that had to come out, that Neo had to make a choice. Because a lot of times we're not going to make no choice until we have to. Until we have to. We'll ride that fence as long as we can. And then when it's time to make the choice, you got to make the choice. So the oracle told him what he had to hear so that he could know. You know what I'm saying? And then slowly but surely, as everything is transpiring, Neo has made this choice now. So he's waking up to who he is. He's really beginning to see because it's going accordingly. And so they free Morpheus, okay? And so it's like when it's time for him to face the agent, it's like, well, okay, he's starting to feel like I can do what they say is impossible. You see, he's starting to believe in himself. And it's just like Morpheus told him, Neo, sooner or later, you're going to realize there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. You can't ride the bench you're going to have to get up and get in the game. You can't just know and not be. It's not about knowing, it's about being. When you know how to tie your shoe, you don't keep screaming that you tying your shoe. You don't keep, when you know how to do something, you don't keep screaming it. You just do it. You just be it. So we have to just be what we are and not just know it. Because then we just really just talking about it. It's not about talking about it. It's about being it. And so we see this happen. We see Neo die and resurrect as the one. He has to die, be reborn, and voila, we see him as the Christ. It's the same story. They tell the same story over and over, but it's the greatest story ever told. That's why we continue to tell it. It's the story of your soul. That's why this story can be repeatedly told. It's a familiar story. It's familiar to you and who you are and what you are. But this movie, this trilogy, is about trying to help you understand it so you can wake it up. And we seeing more movies like this. We seeing it's in all. You see it in Harry Potter's. The Harry Potter movie is about this. The Lord of the Rings stuff is about this. The Star Wars stuff is about this. The The avatar is about this. Man, everything is about this one concept. You to Christ. It just has to be awakened in you for you to be what it is you are here to be. It's really all it really is. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get ready to conclude this one because I know that I'm gonna have to do that Matrix Reloaded, and so hopefully I can get y'all that Matrix Reloaded one real soon. I already have, like, I done a breakdown with that one. I just haven't put it on video. So I'll get that to y'all soon, but I don't know. I hope y'all got something from it. It's my first time doing this movie thing on camera, to talk about it in an actual, video breakdown. So if you got any suggestions for me on how to make it better, drop a comment. If you like it, drop a comment. You got a question, drop a comment. Whatever it is, just drop a comment. If you got a suggestion, if it's a movie you want me to do, drop a comment. But I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to get those other two matrices done, because you can't really do justice on the Matrix without doing the other two. So we can complete the story. So we're going to do the other two. Maybe the Wizard of Oz. I think the Wizard of Oz definitely has to be done because it's the most basic, direct movie that there is. And it's old. Everybody's seen it. But I don't know, man. There's so many movies out there that just give us so many spiritual, metaphysical jewels, information that we're not accustomed to hearing or, understanding. But I think it's very vital. Personally, as a person who does readings, who does energy, who considers themselves to be a guide for people, you can learn a lot, through this. It could just be me and, my understanding of things, but I know that it's easy for me to explain a lot of things through movie concepts. So it's just something that I'm good at doing when it comes to movies and music. So if it's anything out there that y'all feel like want to decode and hand it, a suggestion, just drop it in, just contact me, reach out to me, whatever the case may be. If you want to add something, you want us to reiterate on something, if I left out something, because I'm sure I did. I just kind of went through this in one day. Drop it in a comment. We can bring it up in a discussion in a thread. But I hope y'all enjoyed the video breakdown. So there is definitely more to come. And visit the website, which has our newsletter. Anything that we have going on is always going to be posted on our website. We got this YouTube channel coming. It's all about King and Queen Bay. Instagram, Twitter, King and Queen Bay. Just follow King and Queen Bay. That pretty much kind of does it for now, everybody. Peace.